Hi everyone, Goo-Man here with a little video I wanted to put together to celebrate and send off Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak, which were the two previous entries in the series. I wanted to specifically talk about 3 of my favorite fights that were brand new to Sunbreak. I had a great time with these games. Rise was my first Monster Hunter game where I got to enjoy the hype cycle right from the get-go, so I would steal some time away from work and watch all the new reveals and the weapons showcases, and it was so much fun being a part of that. That was the first time I really got to experience the magic of the Monster Hunter community, and I'm excited to be with you here now. So let's just get to it. The first fight we're looking at, obviously from the footage, is Luna Garen. I enjoy this fight a lot. It's very simple. Its moves are very clearly telegraphed, and a lot of them just kind of hit in a straightforward line, very similar to Odo Garen in the world. So one thing that stands out to me is that this is a 3-stage fight. So usually a monster has its normal state that you can fight it in, and then an enraged state where it roars, it gets angry, and it starts attacking faster. Luna Garen has that, of course, but it also has a third form where he sort of transforms into kind of like a bipedal thing. In Sunbreak, there is a group of monsters called the Three Lords, which is part of the kind of a marketing gimmick, where 3 of the central monsters in the story, the Luna Garen, the Garen Golem, and the Malzeno, they represent 3 very common classic horror movie tropes, like Luna Garen is the werewolf, Garen Golem is the Frankenstein's monster, and Malzeno is Dracula. Obviously we're fighting the werewolf right now, and then when you're annoying enough at it, it will transform and kind of fight you as this whole new beast. And I always get a kick out of that. I love 3-stage fights just because they're just that much different from a usual fight. I don't think I'd enjoy it as much if every fight was like this. I think it's because that they're few and far between that I find it so special. And this is a fun one, even if it's not very hard. I do wish there was more to this fight. I find it very simple, especially for a master rank fight. It's like it feels like an introductory hunt, even though you don't see it until about halfway through the story in Sunbreak. I honestly don't know if it's because I've spent so many hours just grinding out the very end game hunts that this guy just feels so slow. But this is a fight I can always come back to and have a good time in, and just sort of bully him a little bit. This fight is a great demonstration of my favorite combat maneuver, which is pick a direction and just kind of run. As you can kind of see, you don't really have to overthink your defensive maneuvers. Sometimes it really is just as simple as running forward a little bit, because of the way the enemies will lock onto your position when it starts an attack. And for Luna Garen, that moment happens pretty early on in an attack animation, which means that pretty much as soon as he starts to telegraph, you can just walk out of the way and you'll be fine, with the exception of a couple of its heavy-hitting combos. If you were around in the live stream where I recorded some footage for this video, or you saw it after the fact, you might notice that the video is a little bit different. And that is because I re-recorded everything, because I realized that I shot all the footage with the camera zoomed all the way in for some reason, and I did not think it made for a pleasant viewing experience, so I decided to just redo the whole thing. And then recreated the spirit of kind of what I was trying to show off in the stream as well. But that's pretty much all I have to say about Luna Garen. A simple and clean fight. I have a lot of fun with it, and I hope we get to see him again someday. The second monster I wanted to talk about was the Scorned Magnamalo, which is the Master Rank variant of the flagship monster from the Rise base game. This fight is chaotic, it's hectic. Magnamalo is ferocity incarnate. In a sense, it also feels like I'm in a one-on-one duel with a longsword user, which is kind of fun. I like that it uses the sort of blades on its arms as part of its attacks. I don't quite understand how it makes sense ecologically, but it looks cool, and that's kind of all that needs to matter, I think. His tail, I think, also deserves a special mention. Sometimes he uses it to stab you like it's a spear, sometimes he slams it on the ground like it's an axe, and sometimes he waves it around like a magic wand to make the air explode. So that's cool. I think the first couple of times you fight Magnamalo, he is your worst nightmare. There's so much going on, and it's really hard to parse what's happening at any given moment. But he was one of those fights where you just ended up having to do over and over again. I remember back in the base game of Rise, I think I fought the regular Magnamalo something like 30-something times, because you had to get the rarest drop from him to make the handicraft jewel, which was part of like the strongest meta sets at some point. So I ended up getting very well acquainted with his entire moveset, front and back. Scorn Magnamalo, I think, is a pretty solid test of skill. Like, if you were trying to master a weapon, this guy would definitely put you to the test. I make plenty of mistakes against this guy still. He does attack pretty fast, his combos can get pretty nutty. When he's enraged, some of his attacks hit twice, just to surprise you. If you're someone who can fight this guy comfortably without making mistakes, I would say you're a pretty good hunter. One noteworthy mechanic about Magnamalo is that anytime you get hit by one of his purple explosions, you will be afflicted with the Hellfire status. After a time, just like Blast, it will explode and do damage to you. However, if you sheath your weapon and use your Wire Bug on a movement ability, you'll actually leave your fire behind like it's a mine. If a monster hits it, they'll trip and be knocked to the ground. It's a very useful sort of one-off tool to make an opening for yourself. However, this effect does have diminishing returns. So after the first time, it might take a couple of tries to get the same effect. So don't rely too much on it, but at the beginning of a fight, it'll give you a great opening to try to get an early part break. Another thing to be on the lookout for is his fast dash attack, where he runs around you, leaving behind clouds of hellfire in a way that leaves the center of that a safe zone. However, after he dashes, he jumps into the sky, and after about a second or two, he will come crashing down with a dive bomb attack exactly where you thought was safe. One way to save yourself is the good old hero dive. That's one way to do it. Another way is to sort of dodge to the outside when he's doing his dashes. So when he comes in for the dive bomb, you're in a better position to just dodge out of the way. And in this clip, I just kind of managed to do the most epic anime thing where I parried both his charge and his dive bomb in the same sequence. This is probably the coolest moment that I have in about 2 hours of recording footage for this video. So I'm gonna keep it in there. The last fight that I'm going to be talking about is the last monster added in Sunbreak. If this is the kind of spoiler that you care about, here is your warning. If you're personally working through Sunbreak yourself and would like to stay in the dark about what the final monster of Sunbreak is, well, here you go. Feel free to click off, and I will see you after you're done. If you're still here, let's talk about my favorite fight in Monster Hunter Sunbreak. 3, 2, 1, let's go! I love Malzeno as a monster. I think his design is immaculate. It's like a perfect blend of sort of the regal majesty and just sheer terror. The Primordial Malzeno variant was added in a bonus update at the very end of the update cycle for this game, introducing a souped-up version of the flagship Malzeno. The base Malzeno fight, in my opinion, was already pretty good, but Primordial takes it up to an insane degree of just frantic, chaotic action with very deliberately planned combo strings that you can avoid if you know what's coming. If Magnamalo is like fighting a longsword player, well, Malzeno is like fighting a lance player. And if you've already watched my videos before, you already know how we feel about Lance players here on this channel. We love them, we cherish Lance players, we hug them, and we kiss them. And Primordial Malzeno is no different. One of my favorite things it does is raise its wings up to its face like it's holding a shield and then charges at you. And if that shield hits you, it will pin you straight to the ground immediately. And if you don't wire fall out of the way in time, it'll stab you with its tail like a spear. I mentioned earlier about the Three Lords and their connection to classic horror movie tropes. Malzeno was heavily inspired by the Dracula/vampire aesthetic. Every time it raises its wings to its face or does a sweeping wing attack that looks like it's flourishing a cape on a stage or something, I really cannot help but go, bleh, 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 bleh. I'm not doing that to make fun of the fight. Like I said, I adore this fight pretty much more than anything. This is definitely my favorite fight in Sunbreak and easy contender for top 3 favorite fights in all Monster Hunter games. Primordial Malzeno also is a 3-stage fight. He has his standard stage where it's basically the same as his normal variation, and he has an enraged state where he gains access to a bunch of ranged attacks, which makes him extra dangerous. And lastly, once you are annoying enough at him, Malzeno would be weak enough to be swarmed by this alien parasitic creature called Curios, and unlock his secret third form, sporting a whole new look and access to some of the deadliest attack chains you'll see in a Monster Hunter game. You might see Malzeno zipping around, kind of teleporting, and that's something he does throughout the fight. Canonically, he's actually just moving super fast, since I think teleportation falls too much in the realm of fantasy for what Monster Hunter is going for. So they went with imperceptibly fast for this guy. Bleh! And if you were to survive its 10-hit combo chain, Malzeno kind of knocks himself out temporarily, as he's actually fighting against the influences of the parasites, kind of representing his internal struggle against the real bad guy in the story. That's something you learn about in the cutscenes before and after, and you can actually watch it play out in real time during combat, which I think is a really cool touch. And of course, I could never forgive myself if I didn't mention just how incredible the backtrack sounds. I'm playing the Malzeno theme over this part of the video, and I'm just losing my mind because I'm listening to it while recording the VO and I'm constantly distracted. But I think it's about time to swap out the music here in a second anyway, so we'll move on from that. I'm not entirely sure what else needs to be said about this fight. Capcom really just knocked it out of the park with this one. I think I have just about 0 complaints. I remember the first time I fought Primordial Malzeno, it took me something like 6 to 10 hours across 2 days of just constantly throwing my face against this wall. And I'm sure I was very frustrated and ready to quit at any point, but when I eventually got that first kill, my goodness, it was, I'm not going to say life-changing because it's a little dramatic, but the level of satisfaction I felt from finally getting this guy down was second to none. I don't feel that way about video games too often, so huge congratulations, big applause for the people who designed this fight. It was excellent, 10 out of 10. I'm gonna wrap up the video there and let the title theme from Wilds play me out today. As of recording this, the reviews for Monster Hunter Wilds are out and they look pretty good. I'm very excited to finally jump into it this weekend. In terms of a content plan, when I started my channel, my goal was to make the kind of videos that would be helpful to my friends who were just starting out in Monster Hunter in general. So I want to make at least a couple of those to start with in the early weeks of Monster Hunter Wilds. I would like to do at least one stream over the weekend, spend an hour or two maybe looking at some of the earlier fights, and do like a freeform follow-up to my first video just pick a couple of fights that happen early and then look at what those are able to teach us about the new game. Something like that. I think that'll be a fun use of time that's a little bit different from what most people I think are going to be doing, which is, you know, just a 7-hour long Let's Play. I don't want to take you away from your favorite streamer, so I'll keep mine quick and focused on a single topic. Aside from that, hey, thanks for watching my video. Like, comment, and subscribe and all of that. And I will see you all in the wilds. Haha. Oh, why